Endurance Athlete Journey podcast. This is the place where you get both a coach's and sports dietitian perspective on topics important to endurance sports, including nutrition, training, and how these impact and fit into your daily life both on and off the race course. Your host, Coach Justin, certified run and triathlon coach and owner of Tabula Rasa Racing, along with Coach Katie, a registered dietitian with a specialty in sports nutrition and owner of Fuel to Run. Here at the Endurance Athlete Journey podcast is where your journey begins. Welcome, everyone, to the Endurance Athlete Journey podcast. I'm your host, Coach Justin. I'm here with Coach Katie. Today is episode 18, and we are going to be talking today about performance anxiety. So this is one of our Coach's Corner episodes. If you've been listening to it for a while, we've kept these two styles separate. The Coach's Corner tends to be a little bit more of a conversation-based, a little bit more relaxed. And so, to be honest with you, I was finding it hard to keep track of the numbers between like a Coach's Corner series and the other one. Because I'm simple. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to bleed these right on in, but we're still going to, display them as Coach's Corners, and we're still going to use the same method, but we're going to work them right on in. You guys, everybody seems to be digging the style and the format of the Coach's Corner, so we're going to continue rolling with it. So I do want to say before we get started that I logged into iTunes today to check us out, and we have our first comment.
Okay.
We do have 3 5-star reviews, 1 comment. So I should have written down the user's name, but I apologize. But the person said, excellent episodes, excellent content, keep them coming. And so huge benefit. Thank you so much for taking the time to leave a comment. We would appreciate it if you are enjoying the content that we're putting out and you're learning something and you're growing as an endurance athlete. Please, whatever platform that you're listening to, go out and leave us a review. On iTunes and Spotify, you can leave up to a 5-star review. I'm not sure about Amazon. I don't listen to podcasts on Amazon, but if they have that ability, go ahead and rock out that 5-star review. We'd appreciate that. Any comments that you guys would be willing to provide to give us a little context that goes with the stars is greatly appreciated. We do check them out and we do take them to heart, and we appreciate your time and effort in doing so. I also want to, I'm kind of front loading the housekeeping things. So here we go. So shameless plug, both Coach Katie and I we have active places. We have places on our athlete roster for new athletes, whether you're finishing off the year or you're starting to think about next year. It is, at the time that we're recording this is August, but it will probably be released sometime in September. So if you're starting to think about next year and you're thinking about, what kind of races do I want to do? Or, I really want to work on my nutrition strategy and kind of figure out how to fuel properly to support my efforts, feel free to reach out to Coach Katie and I. We would love to talk to you and see how we can help you grow and move forward and make some progress in your own endurance athlete journey. So also the Facebook group. So we have the private Facebook group as the Endurance Athlete Journey podcast group. So search that on Facebook, answer one question, we'll let you right on in, and we will continue to work hard to develop a community where we can all support and learn from each other. There'll be additional contents that's coming out in that group, and it's also a place where you can suggest other podcast episodes that we maybe haven't thought about or we haven't gotten to yet, something that you're interested in learning more about. Shoot a message right on in that podcast in the group, and we will add it to the queue. Absolutely. And it's probably going to be a good location for us to throw out Q&As. When we start to build this community, we'll offer opportunities for Q&A podcast episodes where you ask the questions that you'd like answered, and then Katie and I will discuss and then cover them in a podcast. I think I've gotten all of the housekeeping stuff out of the way. So, Katie, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. We're recording this a little later than we usually do. I'm mentally, I think I'm good, but a little tired. But I think I'll make it through.
Yeah.
How about you? I know you. Well,
I'm really tired and I'm cold, actually. So I had to break out the hoodie. I had a long ride today and run as I'm training for Florida, and it was a 3-hour and 15-minute ride with 35-minute run walk protocol. And so I rode hard. It's been a good since June since I've kind of been on the road bike. All my time has been on the gravel bike, and it's just a different style of riding, and I just wasn't used to it. But I went out and just absolutely dropped the hammer. So I had a huge, it was, it was a big athlete failure when it comes to I just paced it really poorly. I rode really hard going out, and it was an out and back, and then on the way back, I paid the price. So 30 minutes before I got to the car, I was trying to find a way to have my car come get me without anybody in it. So I'm still waiting on that technology to show up.
A day that happens.
But until then,
call for it and it'll come drive and pick you up. I'm sure there'll be a day that happens.
I'm too cheap for an Uber, so.
Yeah, I know. And then you have all your bike stuff. I'm like,
I know. But
yeah, I mean, there has been a few times when I was riding that I would call. I remember the windstorm coming once and had to call somebody to pick me up. And maybe in the couple times there were really bad storms, I actually did call my husband or a friend to come get me. But usually when you're 30 minutes out and you do that and there's no reason, it might annoy somebody. I'm just tired. So you kind of have to just make it. I mean, I've been there before. I'm just oh, I've got to make it home and it's miserable, but I get it. I didn't do much today. I just did a 5-mile easy run, and I have my long run tomorrow, longish run. And I was supposed to do a half marathon in a couple weeks, and I didn't sign up for time. It it already sold out. So I'm maybe gonna do the 5-miler. I'm actually almost. I'm almost a little bit relieved. I think subconsciously I just wasn't really ready for a half marathon yet. And so I'm almost a little bit relieved in a way. I think it just kind of says maybe I'm just not quite ready for that whole marathon build and all that. I'm still a little bit getting over that and needing some time before I do some of those longer races. So it's okay. But I did not sign up in time. And I think I subconsciously kind of did that on purpose. I'm just going to wait a while and see if and then I went on last weekend or this week sometime, I guess, and it was already sold out. So, oh well, yeah.
Next time.
So no, I guess I won't have race anxiety.
Yeah.
For this one. And that's kind of what we're talking about today.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about something that I believe everybody to a certain level or to a certain extent kind of suffers from, and is performance anxiety. And I think that this is a valid issue, whether you're coached, whether you're uncoached, if you're new to the sport, or if you've been in it for a long time. I think the introduction of, I want to say, social media, I think really kind of added fuel to the fire. I think it was already there, but now I think many of us, and I don't know if that's going to be an accurate statement. I'll speak for myself because this was kind of my idea for an episode, because this is something that I kind of struggle with, is that you feel kind of like the eyes are on you. And even though they may not be people that you know, they may just be people that follow you. I think to a certain extent, all of us want people to be impressed with performance, or they say, well, man, this person spends a lot of time preparing and training and doing all this stuff, but is it worth it? And, they may, interpret your performance and say, maybe they should just do something else, But I think to a certain extent, I know that this is something that I struggle with, and it's something that I've struggled with for a long time, actually. I think if I had to think back, before I hired a coach, when I went for Ironman Chattanooga, I hired a coach because I was stepping up from 70.3s into the full, and I knew that I didn't have the wisdom to produce a training plan to prepare for something like that. So I hired a coach. Before that, I feel, my friends would follow me, and they would, I would, post about, what I was doing and, all my workouts and stuff like that. So I think some of it stems from some level of insecurity in our own abilities, and some kind of, I want to say, fear on having others interpret our performance and, infer how good or how bad you are. I can honestly say when I first started in triathlon, I did I'd start off with some sprints, and honestly, I had zero expectations for performance. I just wanted to go out there and just cross the finish line. And I think at a certain level, once you have enough races under your belt, I think we start to infer, or we start to overlay performance expectations on us, because we all want to grow, we all want to get better. I think to a certain extent, even though you may not admit it, it's like, oh, I'm just out here, I just want to run because I love running. But I think to a certain extent, deep down inside, you're not content with just running the same pace all the time. You want to see that there's some kind of return on your investment. Otherwise, why would you do it other than the joy of running? But my experience with this is, with endurance sports comes other expenses that we have, and if you haven't had to pay for any chiropractic care or PT care or anything like that, consider yourself absolutely blessed. My opinion is that the medical industry will get your money one way or the other. They will get it either through managing your care because you're inactive, or repairing damage from activity. So I think to a certain extent they're getting their dollars. So it depends on how you want to spend it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's probably true.
I think once you start to like overlay kind of expectations, then I think that there's a pressure that comes with it. And that pressure may not be coming from others. It may be just coming internally, some internal pressure that you've put on yourself. And if you don't meet these goals, how do you interpret that? Do you interpret that as a failure, or do you interpret that as just a learning experience and say, well, maybe there was some stuff that was out of my control, or I just didn't have it that day? But I think many athletes out there think that performance and growth in the sport is linear, that each day we should be getting better, and that trend should be, have an upward sloping line to it. But I have a wise chiropractor who says that performance is not linear. There's ups and downs, there's regressions and progressions, so that line is moving all over the place. And so it's really unrealistic for us to infer and to expect that, we should be getting better every day, or, that,
Oh yeah, like there's.
But I mean, I think the overall trend should be kind of like improving, but the way in which it improves has some volatility to it.
Yeah.
And how do we interpret that volatility?
Yeah, and there's also external things that are kind of out of our control, like that, maybe inhibit your ability to train consistently, or, cause stress, or things that kind of externally will slow down your progress. And so, I think there's just so many things that can kind of contribute to that. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. So your expectations to try to have like a race PR every time, I think if you're expecting that every time you do a marathon, for instance, or every time you do an Ironman or a triathlon, that you're going to improve your time, I don't know, I feel like you're going to be kind of disappointed in that, because there are going to be certain things that happen, whether it is, your training didn't go as well, but also weather or other things going on, so I think sometimes if that's the expectation, then I don't know if you're going to be able to make it very long in this sport, because you have to have other things that are driving you, and sometimes, I mean, I'm just going to take an example from me. I think like I was racing really well in 2017. I did like the Boston Marathon, and I did a bunch of stuff. I did that Run Rabbit Run race and did really well. That was like an ultra. And then I was just kind of burnt out. So I changed everything, and I went and did like powerlifting, literally just stopped running. And then I got pregnant, and then I had my son, and I was so sick. So I had like several years there where I wasn't running, and then I had to come back to it. And basically I had to start all over again, fresh. So that was like a regression very far down, like basically starting almost, I had all these years of running experience. It helps to have all that, it took me not so long to get back, but I had to basically start from like a walk run program. And then I had a series of injuries just from the change in my body. My body changed a little bit. It's like that stuff happens. And if I was gonna, it's almost like I had to start fresh on my expectations. Like all of my PRs previously hadn't gone out the window. It wasn't like I was like, it's impossible for me to ever run fast again. But I knew as I was climbing, I wasn't going to compare my race times as I was climbing back up in fitness to like where I was before. It was almost like reset, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, for now, I'm going to be really happy with a 20-minute 5K, even though I know I was capable of running faster. But, for where I'm at now, this is fabulous, because, I come to have this like total break from running almost. And so there is going to be those things in life. And you can't expect to just, be so consistent all the time and not have things come up, that are going to, kind of derail you a little bit, and that's just part of life. So you have to have something you're doing it for other than just getting better all the
Mm-hmm.
time. And so that's just probably like a sort of a separate topic, but I definitely think that you cannot expect, you almost have to have other goals or other, if you're like, I'm going to get a PR, I kind of constantly want to get better, and you're maybe even thinking, a little bit more about why that is that you're putting so much pressure on yourself. And we could talk a little bit more about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't think that's a realistic expectation. And I can talk a little, I'm happy to dive into like maybe more recently some of my marathon and some of the stuff that happened with that, because I had a lot of self pressure. And that's probably partly why I'm struggling so much now, is that there was so much pressure going into that race to have a certain time. And, I think I don't want to end up like not wanting to run, because I, I want to keep doing it because I do enjoy it. I love the community. But sometimes I think these pressures that we put on ourselves are we think other people are watching us. We think other people are expecting us to do something. And maybe really they aren't, too. I think that's a part of it. So I don't know if you have any thoughts or times in your life where you've had the similar. I mean, most people who've done this a long enough time will have those experiences where they've had either an injury or something in their lives that have caused them to have to stop doing that sport, or they're for a significant amount of time, to where they're almost starting from scratch again. And if all you're expecting is to keep getting better, then I don't think that could totally take you out of the sport and derail you completely. And I don't know, have you had that kind of, I mean, you've had the injury you did with your surgeries and stuff.
My journey has been littered with these things where it's like I
You're
feel like
all
I've had
over
to
the
start
place.
over. I've had to start over so many times. It's ridiculous.
But that's
But
like
I
part
mean,
of our story, right?
yeah,
Like that's
I'm
the part
living
of
it
it
right
though.
now.
I think
You
that's a
know,
part that people, I also kind of wonder, like people are watching us and they're like, or watching, maybe they're watching us. I don't know. They're watching us. So maybe they're interested if they are. Like nobody wants to follow or really like that person that's kind of consistently getting better and doesn't have setbacks. Like, I don't know. I don't have a problem with that person. Like, I hate that or something, but I'm like, I'm more identify with the person who's working hard and then has those setbacks and then overcomes those setbacks and like continues to try and continues to participate. Like
yeah,
I much more respect that person than I do. I mean, not that I don't, someone that just continuously gets better. That's great for them because they're obviously doing something right if they're not getting injured or having setbacks. But, I feel like there's something that you learn in that, right? That's valuable. So if I'm following someone, I'm not like, oh, well, they're injured. So, and oh, they're starting from scratch and their time is 5 minutes slower and I'm not, well, they're not good enough for me anymore or something. So
yeah.
I don't know if that
There
makes
was a
sense.
time where in one of my injuries, I had developed plantar fasciitis in one foot, and then it spread to both feet. But I was stupid. I continued to push. So I think I did 3 half Ironman races. I think I did 1 to 2 half marathons, an Olympic triathlon, all with plantar fasciitis in my feet. And when I was done, I was done. Like I had to
Uh-huh.
take 6 months off of running
Oh, wow. Yeah.
in order to repair the damage that was done to my tendons. And then another instance was when I was training for Ironman Chattanooga. I had developed tendonitis in my left arm and my left elbow. And so, when I was talking with my chiropractor again, and he kind of said, well, this is kind of how I think you need to adjust your swim training just to make it through the race. And then once we get on the other side of the race, then we can shut it down, repair this, and then you'll have to build back up. And then, training for, what was that, Ironman North Carolina, 70.3, I did that with the torn rotator cuff and the torn bicep tendon. And, it was after those surgeries, it took me 4 years and I'm still building. And so, it's humbling and it's frustrating, not so much as because I think people are watching me and they're grading my performance. I'm watching me and I'm grading my performance. And it's not that I'm comparing myself to somebody else. I'm comparing myself to previous versions of myself.
Right.
So, I can sit back and I can think, there was a time where I was swimming a lot and I was in great shape. I was fantastic shape. And, I was throwing down like 130 hundreds in the pool. And I felt like I was fast, even for a bigger guy. I don't have a swimmer's build. I got short arms, I got a short torso, and, I'm kind of, thick around the middle. But if I was throwing down like some serious speed in the water. And now I'm lucky to kind of like get down into the 140s and 150. And so it's humbling. And it says, after all these years, I would think that I would be faster. But, I can say after all these years, the amount of times that I've had to rebuild myself and restart and, I wouldn't change it for anything. I wish I didn't have to experience it, but I think it has made me a better athlete. I know that it has made me a better coach, and it has made me more grateful for what I do get to do. I'm learning humbleness is what I'm learning now. These past 4 years was kind of like, it was a breaking period. I needed to be broken. I'll be honest, I was a little prideful and, I thought, man, this is awesome. I'm doing great. So, and I felt like I was achieving this, and I think my head got too big, and God felt that he needed to break me a little bit to show me that, hey, this isn't something that you're doing under your own will. I'm blessing you with this ability to do this, but you have to recognize who's really in charge, and you're not it. So I think that's helped me. My faith has helped me kind of like walk through this process and really kind of keep in mind like what is taking place and what's going on. And I can say that now after, 10 plus years in the sport, that I am definitely a more humble person. I'm more grateful for what I get to do. And I'm enjoying myself. I enjoy the rebuild, even though it's frustrating. It's like, why can't I just like make forward progress? Why do I have to make forward progress and then stop and then rebuild? So it's kind of that start-stop thing. And you think, where would I be today if I didn't have to rebuild myself all these times?
Right.
And so it's a little, wishing, so.
But I think that's where, I don't know, like, I think that's the process you're going through and the kind of the learning process that you're going through and trying to navigate through the injuries and rebuild. I kind of agree that there's more in that than there is in just kind of, continuing to make forward progress, because you're learning a little bit more about yourself. And that's, to be honest with you, like, I do the running, I like to compete, but the outcome is nice. Like, I do want to improve, and I don't get me wrong. Like, I do want to see, like, I do want to get like a marathon PR. That would be great. But I have to also like face the reality of some of this, that if I do go for it again, I might have a couple more years before age might become the bigger factor for me, right? And if it doesn't happen, how am I going to be, like, what else is happening? Like, what else am I experiencing with the running, or what else is it doing for me that I'm going to be okay with that? Like, like, what's the actual experience of the race, and the gratefulness I have to even be, like you said, to be able to go out and do this and be able to run every day. I meet people in the hospital who've lost legs or whatever, and who knows, like, for their circumstance and why that's happened. But I'm grateful that I have the capability to be out and running and still healthy in it. And so I think there has to be something else besides that desire to have, yes, that would be nice. And I think sometimes when I put too much pressure on myself to have a PR or do well, like, sometimes that actually kind of backfires when I'm not actually focusing on the why I'm doing this and the process that I go through because that's really where I learn a lot about myself. And I do the running because it helps me cope with life, and I run, and I enjoy the workouts. I can't say that when I'm not making progress, it doesn't frustrate me, but there's other things that the running is serving for me, and I think one of the big things is that I'm learning a lot about myself in the process, and I'm learning that I can do hard things, and that I at this point in my life, being in the master's category, I'm excited that I still have the capability to run pretty fast, and that I have the capability to even consider a PR in a marathon. Even if it doesn't happen, I think I would be capable of it on a perfect day. And so I think it's just this whole process of the running and the training. That's where I get most of my growth and most of my contentment for it. And then the race is just kind of like, actually, the race itself is like, I like racing, but it's like I get to the race and I'm like, I kind of just I just like the training. You know what I mean? So that for
Yeah, I
me,
get that. Yeah, me too.
there's that piece too. It's like, but I think in order to be okay with sometimes the outcome not being exactly what you want, it has to be that sort of love and enjoyment of the process and the day-to-day grind in a way of training and going out there and doing it. And I always feel like I'll get out in the morning and I'll do a run and I'm like, gosh, I feel like I'm out here doing this run or this workout and so many people aren't, you know what I mean? And not that I'm better than them, but just like I'm doing this hard thing and this is making my day, setting my day up for success and it's making me healthier. I think, for the most part, that could be argued when I'm in marathon training, whether that's healthy or not. But, so there's so much more to it. And so I think if you can kind of take a little bit of all of that pressure out of like, this is all for this one race and that's all I'm doing this for. And then when you get to that race, if it all falls apart, I think that you're just going to be so much more upset about that. And, so I think that's kind of part of it is just like the expectation, almost like that concept of having like the A, the B, the C goal.
Hmm.
There's a reason why we do that because you have to kind of think about what would I be happy with if I don't get that. Maybe just
Exactly.
being able to finish is especially for like an Ironman or a half Ironman, like that's a task. Like, what's the percentage? There's some sort of statistic out there, like only so many people are even capable of finishing a race like that. And so I think we kind of forget that when we're in it and we're thinking, if I, oh, we're so narrowly focused on like a time or improving, which I think is good because if we're not trying to improve, then I think there has to be some of that motivation there to even get out the door. But it can't be all about that either. And we have to
Right.
realize like, hey, we're actually like just finishing this or finishing a marathon is actually a pretty cool task. So just having that, I think sometimes that's where I struggle when especially with my last marathon is just remembering, why
Mhm.
why I'm doing it and not letting that sort of what the outcome's gonna be. Like, what are people gonna think? And, "Oh, if I do this thing, people are gonna think I'm so cool because I was able to do this?"
Yeah.
And that yeah, there's a piece of it there. But I don't know if you have any more thoughts on
Yeah.
that
I think
specifically I could
I
talk
think
about.
some of it. I think there's many different sources, and I think there's kind of three. I think that for me, there's about three sources of anxiety when it comes to performance. The first one is internal. These are my expectations that I have for myself. The second one is, and the reason that I mentioned that I had hired a coach for my first Ironman was because that's the second source is there's an external source of anxiety. We are not the only ones, we being the athlete, are not the only ones that have to make sacrifices when it comes to our training. And, you know, if you're not, I would argue that you're going to, there's an opportunity cost associated with training. And so there's going to be some level of sacrifice that has to be made, whether it is, quote unquote, free time that you no longer have because it's being spent training, or if you're sacrificing sleep by getting up earlier in the morning, so you have to go to bed earlier, that's a sacrifice. You're not the only one that's making the sacrifice. The people that are around you are making it as well. And it could be your significant other, or your children, friends and other family members. They're sacrificing just right alongside with you because your time is limited. You don't have just unlimited time where you can just do everything that you want to do. And I think for me, that is a big source of performance anxiety because, my wife makes a significant sacrifice when it comes to the time that I spend training. So, that's time that, we don't get to spend together, or, things that we would want to do around the house, that doesn't necessarily get done when it comes to, I'm training for this race right now. So, a couple, some things have to go by the wayside a little bit. And, that's a sacrifice. Before I got married, I split from my first wife, and then, I was a single dad. And, my children have made huge sacrifices over the years, early morning wake ups and drives to, race venues, staying out all day long in the hot summer sun, doing races. So it's like this hurry up and wait mentality for races. That's stressful. Spectating a race is extremely stressful, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. You're invested in your loved one's performance. You're invested in their race as well. And I think us as athletes, we want to make sure that our family members and the ones that love us and support us feel like there is a return on that investment, that this is worth the time. Because if it's not worth the time, then, they may not be as supportive. And so, they could get to the point where it's like, well, they're doing this and it doesn't seem to be worth it, but they're still continuing to do it. So, then they start, well, why don't they want to spend that time with me? Why can't they just see that? And, I think that this is common, when it comes to like the Iron Man divorce, that's a common thing. And, I think that to a certain extent, we want to make sure that our loved ones feel like this is a worthwhile investment. And I think the way that we do that is we feel like we have to perform. It's not that, hey, it's a worthwhile investment because you're improving your health. You're going to be around longer. You're going to be a healthier person. You can move around with, limited pain rather than just being sedentary. And then, that comes with its own, can of worms. So, but I think it all goes back to performance. And I think that us as the athlete is what's doing that. I don't feel like my wife and my kids.
That's what I was gonna say.
They don't tell me. It's like, hey, we expect you to perform.
Right.
They're not like like a football owner. It's like, hey, this is your job. I'm paying you to perform, so you got to perform. This is all on me.
That's just like you're kind of making it up to think that they're thinking. I wonder, because I mean, maybe that's true for some people. Like their spouse might be like, well, you don't seem to be getting any faster at this. You know what I mean? And maybe there's that. But I think for my own family, like it's interesting because I've had aunts and uncles come now to 2 of my races. So they went to New York City because they live close, and then they drove up to the Vermont City Marathon. And I really just don't think that they cared what I ran. They were just happy to be there to support me. And I mean, obviously, I think they would be disappointed for me if I had just totally had a bad race, but I don't think that they cared. They just wanted to be there to support me. And they drove all the way up, and it was just wonderful, to have them there, and so great that they're supportive. And I think they just wanted to do that. And I know they're not like the people living with me every day. But even my mom, I mean, over the years, she's questioned why I do this. Because she's not a runner, but she's supportive. I mean, she's always been happy to support me in that. And then with my husband and my son, like same thing. Like I think my husband realizes how much the running means to me, and how much I think he's also seen what happens when I'm not running and not training. And I think I might be a slightly different person. Like, no, I'm the same person, but I might not be the best version of myself, let's say, when I'm not able to train. And so I think he kind of recognizes that it's serving me and that I'm doing it for myself. I think he's disappointed when I don't do well because I'm disappointed. But I don't think he's ever been like, well, what are you doing this for? You don't seem to be, I mean, I don't think he even knows what my times are, nor does he like pay that much attention to, if he probably does maybe for the marathon, but he would, for other races, I don't think he would even be able to tell you how fast I ran. But he'll come if he'll ask, like, do you want me to come? Or, do you want us to be there? And if it's an important race, I'll say yes. And yes, they do make some sacrifices, especially in those moments, because it's kind of boring, sometimes to watch a marathon or something. But they're not, I think that's true. You can think that like, oh, they're going to wonder like why I'm not getting better and like why I'm doing this. And I think I see where you're coming from, but I think that for the most part, most family members are not expecting that. Like
Mm-hmm.
They just want to make sure you're like, if they might be more concerned or more like worried about it if you're doing all this training and then you just somehow are doing it and then your internal motivation isn't there and it just seems like you're just slogging through and you're not enjoying it anymore. And it's like, I think that's more of an instance where they're going to be like, what the heck? Why are you still doing this? You seem to dislike it. You never want to train. You're always complaining.
Right.
Like then what is it serving you? And it surely isn't serving me. But if you're out there training and you're enjoying it and it's something that's a big part of your life and you love it and you're happy, like and you seem to be, seeming to making your life better and making you feel more accomplished or whatever it is, I think they'll most of the time be supportive within reason, obviously. Like
Yeah.
you have to like still spend time with them, but like that's my take on it. So I think, I get that and I can see where that pressure would come from, but I think it might even be worth asking, like keeping in touch with them about it. Like, how is this
Yeah.
going? Is this taking up too much time? Like, what are your expectations for my race? What do you want me to achieve? And they probably won't say, well, it's probably not worth it if you don't keep winning or something, or you don't keep getting better. I'm sure that's maybe the answer, but I don't know. I don't think
Yeah.
so.
I think when I had a coach, I think one of the things is that I didn't want to let him down.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, I
he
could
he
see that
spent
for sure.
he spent a lot of time, preparing my training plans, and he invested his time in me, and so I didn't want him to feel like, well, this guy just isn't worth the investment. And I wanted him to be proud of my performance. And I think that was another level of anxiety that, whenever I would sign up for a race, it was this pressure to perform because I didn't want to let him down. I didn't want to let my
Mhm.
family members down and people that have supported me. It's still something that I struggle with. I'm self
Mhm.
coached now, so I don't have that level of anxiety anymore. But, I still project, I still feel like I'm a little bit a little anxious based on how I feel maybe my family members are thinking. But again, that's all between my ears. So it's
Mhm.
all in my head. And one of the things that recently I was working with these two ladies. They were very, very new to the sport, and they had signed up for a sprint, and they really didn't know how to swim. And we happened to go to the same gym. So I was in the pool a couple times when they were in there, and they were trying to kind of figure it out on their own. And so I just felt drawn to say, hey, just help them out a little bit, give them some pointers and some ideas and things to do. And so I helped them a couple, during a couple of my swims, talked to them. And then they came to me and said, hey, can you work with us, just for the 8 weeks, get us to where we can swim this thing. This will be with me for the rest of my career and for the rest of my life. Is one of the ladies was struggling more than the other one, and I could see the anxiety in her eyes like every week that I would show up. So we did weekly coach sessions in the pool, and it was the last session, and I could see the tears were already in her eyes. And while she's in the water and I'm on the deck, and she was saying the exact same thing that I'm saying now. So I could completely relate to how she felt. She didn't want to let her friend down because they signed up to do the race together. I'm not quite sure if there was like she was feeling like she was pressured to perform, by her husband or anything like that. Honestly, I met her husband on race day, and he was there and he was supportive. I don't think he really cared, honestly. So it was a bit of a fresh breath of fresh air for me. But
Mhm.
I could feel the pressure that she was putting on herself, fearing that she was going to let her friend down, because her friend was like, we're in this together. We're going to do this together. And so, I had the same conversation that you're having with me. It's like, people are not looking at you. People are self-absorbed. They're self-focused. And honestly, they don't care about your performance. All they care about is what they're doing. And I said, I'm not going to say what their names are or anything like that. But, I say, she doesn't care how well or how poorly you perform. She just wants you to see you succeed.
Mhm.
And so what that success looks like at the end of the day is going to be whatever it is. But
Right.
honestly, I think she's just happy that you guys are doing it together. There are no performance expectations. And so, everybody who's there to support you just wants to see you have fun. and
Absolutely, yeah.
convince yourself that you can do hard things, because she absolutely hated swimming. I could see her fighting the water every week, and I could understand how she felt. And so, I had to put my little coaching hat on, and it's like, and I had to give this speech to her and said, I don't care how you perform. Your friend here doesn't care how you perform. Your husband doesn't care how you perform. Nobody cares how you perform. We just want to see you have fun and succeed. And whatever that success looks like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Knowing that I have to tell myself the exact same thing. And I don't know why I can't listen to myself, because the speech that I gave her is the speech that I need to hear myself.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And you're not, it's like I don't want to say it's just that it's not like hypocritical, because on some level, but it's hard. It's just hard sometimes when it's ourselves, because, yeah. And I think that's something we've talked about a little bit, like not on the podcast, but before, is that sort of what people are seeing and their expectations. Yeah. And that's something for me, it's more so that, like, I'm like, it's a little bit of that. Like, it's like, oh, wouldn't people think, like, wow, if I get my marathon PR at 42 or 43, and I can be like, hey, look, I'm 43 and I ran a marathon PR. Like, isn't that going to be cool? People are going to think I know what I'm talking about. They're going to think I'm just awesome, right? And maybe, I mean, I think there might be some level of, like, if I post it, people be like, that's cool. Like, but honestly, like, I don't know if I think it's going to be what it, like, if people really care that much about it, or if like I did with my current marathon, the most recent one, I mean, Vermont City Marathon, I got like the exact same time as I did like 15 years ago, and that's pretty cool. But I don't think people would have been like, if it had been like 2 seconds off, like, from that PR, like, if I hadn't reached it, I just don't think I think people would have been like, oh, that's still cool, like, I don't know, like, I just don't know how people are really paying that much attention. And it's kind of this, like, almost like egotistical piece to it, of like, wow, that shouldn't be the reason I'm running the marathon, is because I think people are going to think that if I can break my PR, 15 years, whatever years later from when I originally had a PR, that's, somehow I'm going to impress people with that. And maybe that is impressive. It is, like, but I don't know, there's just this external piece. And if I do run a marathon and it doesn't go like I wanted it to, which has happened, like, people still like me. And I think sometimes people, if I talk about it and I'm like, hey, this happened, people can relate, because it's happened to so many people. You know what I mean? And it's not like they're going to be like, unfollow.
Yeah.
Like, they're following. She's like, wow, she sucks. You know what I mean? Like, no, I don't think people are going to, like, maybe they would for other reasons, but they're probably not because of, like, whatever thing I'm posting about my time and what I did, So I think that's kind of what got me into some trouble, I think, on my marathon, because I had not only that pressure of, like, oh, I really want to achieve this, and it was kind of becoming more external, like ego a little bit, like, look how I'm going to be so cool. And then it was also that because I was like, oh, well, I've done this marathon before, I have a pretty good time, I'm going to ask if I can be an invited runner. And I got in. And then there was this pressure on top of that, but because now I'm in their invited runner program. So now I'm even more special, right? Special because I'm in this program, and I get all my bottles out on the course, which is great because it helps to have that and be able to have my own nutrition and fluids. But now there's this pressure, like, well, now I have to do well because the race director and the people putting on the race are expecting me to do well because I'm in this program. Like, they think I'm going to be fast. So now there's this other expectation of me and these other people that I think are watching and care, so, and then there's myself, like, my expectations on it. And, I did well. Like, I'm not complaining. I'm very happy with my race. It was phenomenal. Do I wish it was a couple seconds faster so I could have said it was an actual PR? Sure. Yeah. But, it didn't happen. It's kind of remarkable that it was the same time. Exactly. That's an interesting feat. In the end, it's like, I don't think, I don't know, if I hadn't done well, if my race blew up, I would have been disappointed, but I don't think any of those other people would be. all that, they just know that that happens. No one's going to be that upset with me. But that put so much pressure on me that I wasn't sleeping well for a couple nights before the race. And I know that that had a factor. So it's almost like that concept of like self-sabotage in a way, where I was just getting so worked up over it and starting to get so nervous and anxious and all this pressure building that I'm now unable to sleep well, which is kind of a important thing. And it wasn't just like the night before, it was like a couple nights before. And so there's like 2 or 3 nights of poor sleep. And otherwise I'm trying to do everything right, but I do think like, wow, like maybe the next time I go into this, I need to really be able to find a way out of that sort of pressure, because
Yeah.
I can't go into it. I need to be able to sleep. I need to be able to take care of myself the days before. I can't become like a nervous wreck, worrying about how the race outcome's going to be. And so that's, I think, I don't know how relatable that is, but that's kind of where I was with that race. And I think that's kind of why I'm a little bit hesitant to sign up again, because I'm like, I have to find a way to be okay with the outcome, even if it's not this goal of having this PR, which has kind of been the whole goal the whole time, since I started training for the marathon again after that last one in 2017. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of my issue,
Yeah.
but yeah.
One of the things that I'd like to say is that I think that there's a level of desire to be accepted. I've been on a couple ambassador teams. I'm on one right now, actually. So I think sometimes that I put more pressure on myself to perform so that I'm accepted by people in the sport. So it's not that I want to be accepted by people outside of the sport. It's within the sport. And maybe that stems from, like, I don't want to say it's like this is all like childhood thing. And, it's like, oh, you couldn't sit at the cool kids' lunch table or something like that, But I think to a certain extent that has some level of truth, where people that are within the sport that you've chosen, you want to be accepted by them. And, sometimes that the barometer that we use for acceptance is performance metrics. And I can say right now that the team that I'm on now, there's absolutely zero performance expectations. Their only expectation was to not be a jerk. So,
Okay.
that was their rule.
Just
Don't be a
nice
jerk.
though.
Just be nice.
I like that expectation.
But then again, it's just like, man, but I really want to be accepted by them. I want people to think that I'm a good athlete, and so I think some of that, that's where some of the anxiety comes from, even though nobody's ever put that on me.
It's all like things that we think people. It's like all these
so
expectations.
That seems to be the common thread.
Yeah. And I think and I do think that comes a lot from, because I mean, there is a lot that comes from social media too. You kind of mentioned that in the beginning, is that you're on there, if you're following other athletes, it's like some people are out there doing all these crazy great things, like, running races and PRs, or they're doing like in the ultra running community, like FKTs, and I don't know. I'm like, well, that sounds cool. Like, I don't think I'd be able to accomplish that. I don't know if I'm good enough, but it's like all these people out there doing these great things, and you almost want to be like, oh, like if I do something, at least I'll be able to kind of doing something, great, or maybe like great within my community, even if it's not the running community at large, but I'm part of a racing team. Like I want to be doing good so I can stay on the racing team. Right. So It's like, I don't know. Like, I think there is this almost where we would have been a little bit more isolated years ago when we didn't have social media. We would just be with our friends who run, and that would be the only people we're comparing to. Now we're kind of like have this broader amount of people. You just know more about different runners out there, and I think we're more exposed to like pro athletes and elite athletes. And I oftentimes I have had these thoughts before where I'm like, I know I'm okay, but dang, I'm just like really suck compared to like, like, why am I doing this? You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, it's not all about performance, right? Like, but you see what some of these athletes are doing, and you're just like, gosh, like, I don't know. I thought my like time was okay. But like, so I think we get in these like comparison traps, and that can almost make the pressure a little bit worse, because we feel like we have to, at some level, even if it's not that sort of level, but we feel like we have to perform in order to kind of justify why we're doing it, or our participation in the sport. And I think
Yeah.
that is very external. And I know there are so many examples of people that are just out there just doing it because they love it. And I think, those are the people I tend to gravitate towards also are the athletes out there who are just seeming to just like love it. Even if they're doing well, they just do it because they want to be out there participating, and they're
Yeah.
not always the best. There's some of them are just people that are just out there doing it, out there in the grind day to day, putting in the training, and they may be back of the packers. Like there's a beauty in that, and it's all just we're out here together all doing it. And I think most of us don't care what the person next to us is doing as long as we're all having fun, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't care that much. I mean, I do. I want people to succeed, obviously. Like, I have people I follow and they're like, I didn't have a good race. And there's a part of me that's like bummed for them. Not because I want them to do it, because I'm not going to like them as much anymore. It's more that I'm like, I'm really seriously bummed for them because I know they wanted to have a good race. And yes, I have a disappointment because I want them to succeed for themselves. But it's not like I think anything less of them. And I think I need to remember that for myself too. And I think too, you just Justin need to keep telling whatever you told your athlete there, you need to keep saying to yourself until you believe it.
I know one of the things that I wish I did is I wish I had recorded the whole speech that I
Oh
gave
yeah, you
to
should
her
have.
because I mean that was like seriously like one of those like good coach moments where it's just like
You're like,
you
yeah,
want
I wish
to
I could
you
have.
just want like a camera just filming this and you can see it in the movies and it's just like
Right.
this apex, this climax in the movie, and this is they're having a come to Jesus meeting with their athlete, and I wish I had done that so I can play it for myself.
Yeah.
So
I
that
know
was one
there's
of the,
times like that.
yeah.
You're like, gosh, that was good. I
I
wish I
know
could
that was good. I don't think I
recorded
could
that.
replicate it if I tried. So
Yeah.
that
I
speech
have
was awesome.
moments like that sometimes too when I'm working with people. I'm like, wow, I really articulated that well. I wish
Yeah.
I was able to record it because that would have probably resonated with a lot of people, you know. But at least we're talking about it here, and I think a lot of people listening probably can, at some level can kind of identify with something that we're saying about the pressures of race. And I think it's important to remember like these are external pressures, and then also like we have the pressure we put on ourselves too. And I think that can sometimes be even worse because sometimes our expectations for ourselves were too hard on ourselves. And I know that's a problem I
Yeah, me
have
too.
also, is just being so hard on myself about things like whether I'm not able to finish a training run or something's not going right or I don't do well in a race. It's just I'm so hard on myself, and sometimes I can't identify or it's like the factors that are contributing to that. I won't I'll be like downplay those even though they might have been pretty significant. Like for example, after my marathon, I had a really tough time getting back. We've talked about that. I had that periodontal surgery, and then 3 days later, after like 2 days after they said I could start running again, so not even more than a week after this surgery, I tried to do a 5K. And it actually went like actually I should have been happy about it surprisingly well, but really not comparably to where I thought I should have been at this point and where I was last year at the same race. It was like probably at least 20 seconds, if not like maybe 35 seconds off. And so I was so hard on myself.
Yeah.
And I had to really sit there and have to tell myself, like, I'm okay. I had the surgery, like, and I'm like Googling it to make myself feel better. Like, oh, yeah, well, there's this, like, when you're coming back from like a surgery, there's like your heart rate's going to be up. There's all these things happening. Like, I had to almost like make sure that, like, I don't know, like, I was just to maybe appease myself a little bit. And it's like, why can't I just, it's okay. Like I'm coming back. I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to have these great races every time. Like I'm just out there participating and it went surprisingly better than I thought it would. So I should just be happy, with that. And
Yeah.
I think it's that outside, maybe more ego and worrying about people. But I think for me, it's a lot of this internal, I'm sorry, pressure of like myself putting these expectations on me, and then what happens if I don't achieve and how hard I can be on myself. And even in the marathon with how it went, and overall it was great. Like I did so well, but I was there. It was really hard. I had to keep reminding myself, like, this is great. Like I did well, like it shouldn't be hard on myself, like for, not getting the PR.
Yeah.
And I wish it wasn't like that. And I think that's just always how I've been. And it's always a struggle that I've had throughout my whole life. and in other areas too, not just running. So it's just like that's probably my biggest thing I have to really work on is like just somehow letting go of that little bit of expectation or that sort of more extreme expectation for myself and being kinder a little bit to myself a little. That's probably a big piece of it is just that kindness of how would I approach somebody who is in that situation? It'll probably be with a lot of kindness,
Yeah.
versus like, you did all this training and like, look at, you didn't even get what you wanted. You should have run faster, all this like negative self-talk that kind of happens. It's like, I would never say that to somebody, even an athlete. I would never say that to an athlete I was coaching. I would never say that to a friend. And I'm here just like bashing myself a little bit over it. And it didn't last for long. I kind of was able to get over it. Like, this is crazy. I should, but I think that's probably one of my biggest flaws. I don't know if I have a lot of words of wisdom for that, like how to overcome it because I still struggle with it. It's just more so to like identify that for myself as like, this is probably one of my biggest problems is not what's happening outside, but what's happening inside. I don't know if you
Yeah.
feel that way too, but that's.
Yeah, I would say like the next source of performance anxiety is professional based. I mean,
Okay. Yeah.
we're both coaches. We've both been at this a long time. And I think I'll speak solely just for me. I think that there is a level of insecurity in my abilities, as a coach to have the ability to bring somebody forward so that they can perform to their expectations. There's a level of anxiety that comes with that.
Mm-hmm.
And if people are out there and they see my performance, do they use my performance as a barometer for how good of a coach I am? And I think a lot of coaches do this where, they're selling themselves and, we're like, we're Kona qualifier and we're Kona finishers and, we have this, masters and, this kind of performance and we've done this and done that. So there is a degree of, we have to sell ourselves based on our performance. But one of the things that you said to me, like we were having this conversation, was like about a week or so ago when we were talking about doing this, was that, and it's something that I needed to hear, was that people don't care how well you perform. What people care about is what can you bring to the table to get for them to perform. What can you do for others to have them realize their goals? And so that's something that definitely stuck out to me, and it's been helpful. I don't know if
so
other
many.
coaches have this level of anxiety that that people are looking at their performance and judging them on how good of a coach that they are based on how they perform. But I know I do.
I feel that way a little bit too. Not maybe to the same extent, but just the, oh, if I'm performing well, then maybe people will be like, oh, I'm going to work with her for nutrition because she obviously knows what she's doing if she's performing well, that kind of thing. Like I do get that a little bit, but I'm not, I think because of what I told you, and that's kind of what I believe, I don't think it's as much as, and I that's probably why coaches do that, right? Like I'm a Kona fan or whatever, because they do, there might be a subset of people that are, okay, I want to work with someone like that because maybe they are trying to be a Kona finisher or something. But there's so many athletes out there who are just doing this sport because they love it. They maybe don't really care. Like, in fact, maybe they're like, okay, like it's not really my goal. There's only so many, only a small portion of people who can actually qualify for Kona. And there's so many more that are just doing it or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that's just an example. But they're just doing it because they want to just finish an Ironman or they want to do something great or they just like the sport. And I think they would be more, if you're putting, with your personality and kind of like your information and you're putting it out there. And I think if you're helping people get better or just do what they want to do and improve or like finish, that says a lot. I think that says a lot more than whether somebody finishes Kona. In fact, I know a lot of people who are professional triathletes or professional runners who maybe have done things like that and really would not be very good coaches. So just because somebody, or they don't have an interest in it, but maybe they wouldn't actually make the best coach. So I think somebody even looking for a coach, like if that's your parameter, I just want to caution you against that, because just because someone's accomplished something, it's probably less likely. It's probably that they had a coach themselves and they have a talent for it. And it's probably has nothing to do with whether or not they would be able to coach you very well, because just because they've accomplished something doesn't mean that that makes them a good coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like I'm gonna put that out there. Like your accomplishments, if somebody's listening, like whoever, I don't know, it's more than that. You have to really invest in the sport. You have to be, you know, I think maybe like doing the research. It does help to compete in the sport, obviously, but you have to be like, you know, wanting to help people. You have to be like being in it and learning and curious and you know what I mean? All the things I think that you have, you know, Justin. So it's like I like the attributes that you have as a coach. So I just want to put that out there. And I think probably people sign up to work with people who are, you know, have accomplished or they are professional athletes and they might not be always the very best coach either. So because maybe they're following like a cookie cutter plan that they're just sending you. I don't know. I'm not saying that's true for all the professional
Yeah.
athletes or people who but you know, I think it's important to keep that in mind. And it's really like what your knowledge is and how you're serving people and helping them improve and reach their goals. That's what matters. So that's what I have to tell. That's kind of what I tell myself too. And I know it because I've seen it. I've talked with people who have had coaches before and have told me their stories and kind of what they've run into sometimes with hiring different coaches and sometimes that shouldn't be the only thing that people are looking at is like what other people have what the coaches have accomplished in terms of their own um s- sports. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So one of the things that I've done recently, and we've talked about it in other podcast episodes. So I've was blessed with a registration to Ironman Florida 70.3 for this year. So just in a couple episodes that we've talked about it. So one of the things that I decided to do was to be completely vulnerable for this race. And the way that I've done that is I have agreed to myself to create a documentary effectively. So every week I'm going to post a video on how my week's training went. It's the not just the phys. I'm trying to not do it in terms of like, you know, well, I did, you know, today I did 66 miles on the bike and this was my average power and this was my cadence and this was my fueling strategy. That's not what I feel is going to be of interest. I think I want to tell a story. And so I want to share, you know, what it is that I'm going to be doing. And as I do it, you know, how I feel about it, the emotions that is associated with, you know, how my training's going, you know, some of the things that I struggle with, some of the things that I'm successful with. So I want to tell a story. I'm also going to be pushing out, you know, my actual real workouts. So, you know, I'm going to be pushing that out on Instagram and into the closed Facebook group. So you will actually see, you know, hey, on Monday, this was the workout that I did. I'm just doing that for complete transparency. But the videos are going to be me telling a story on how the week went. And I think to a certain extent, now that I'm sitting here and it's like, man, now I've agreed to like completely be open and you know I don't know who's watching it. I can see the metrics on like people that are watching the videos or whatever, you know, so I know that there's been a couple watches, but you know, if nobody watches it, then all right, that's fine, but it'll be out there.
You want to watch I think people enjoy not enjoy that, but they appreciate honesty and like
Yeah.
real like because there's so much on Instagram that's just like curated of like look at everything's wonderful and I've got this all figured out and you're like no you don't, that's a load of BS, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And like
this
so
is
I think
not that. Yeah.
I think people actually want to see the authentic piece and not so much the curated. And I kind of almost am totally turned off when I see, you know, things on running or running influencers or whoever out there, like just sort of this curated nonsense. You know what I mean? It's like just, okay, that's not real, you know, realistic or something. And so I think, I don't know, I think what you're doing is great. And I know it's hard to be vulnerable. So it is like I have a hard time with that. And I think maybe, you know, at some point I'll probably do something similar as I ramp up again. It won't be probably until, I mean, it might be sooner than later, but we'll see. I want
Yeah.
to start doing a little more videos and being realistic with it. And I think there's something to it. So I do hope people watch what you have to put out there because I think I, yeah, I'll be
It's
watching.
definitely it's outside of my wheelhouse.
Yes, it's outside your comfort.
As a coach, you know, I'm actually going to be, you know, giving away a lot of free information.
Oh, there
You
you
know,
go.
if I'm posting like all of my workout details and this is, you know, this is the structure of the workouts, that's that's a valuable part of my business. But I agreed to do this because I wanted to be completely vulnerable. I wanted to be completely transparent as to what I'm doing. And I think this is more of an exercise for me than it is for helping somebody else. This is something that I needed to do for me, whether anybody, I hope people benefit from it. If it gets people to sign up for a race that never would have signed up for it, because they're going to see kind of like the struggles that I'm foreseeing that I'm going to have to deal with. And, this is the real look, on kind of like what it takes to do something like this. So this is going to be a growing thing for me. And I'm scared. I'm really nervous on how people are going to receive it and how I'm going to do. So there's a little bit of performance anxiety. It's like, oh, well, people watch this over 16 weeks. Hopefully, I perform well, so they consider it to be a worthwhile investment of their time in watching videos. But even if I get to the end of the 16 weeks and I crap the bed at Ironman Florida, which I hope doesn't happen, then they'll see the work that I put in, and they'll say, the guy was consistent. He did what he said he was going to do. And come race day, it just didn't happen.
Yeah,
and that's
that
fine.
happens.
And it happens.
Everybody
I've had a number of races where I was completely
Yeah.
consistent, executed the training plan perfectly, and everything went well. And I just did not have it that day.
Yeah,
and
or
that's
it
just
could
part
be
of the
the
game.
opposite. It goes really. It's just that's part of the game, right? And that's.
Yeah.
But I think that's what people want to see is like, and I think I enjoy watching those types of videos where people are talking about their training as they go. And then they have some investment. They want you to do well, but I don't think that they're gonna think any more, or any less of you. They might think more of you because you posted all of this and we're so vulnerable, but they're probably not going to be like, well, put all this work in. And, because everyone who races knows that there's, especially triathlon, where there's so many factors that have to come together with the 3 disciplines. And then you have weather and you have, so many things that are coming together to get a perfect race, and so many things that could go wrong. I mean, we all know. So I think that's great. And I'm excited to see your videos and what you're putting out there. And at least you'll have me watching it. So, I'm sure. Maybe more people will now that you're saying it on the podcast. So hopefully people will go check it out.
One of the things that I'm going to, so I do want to leave with like an action point. Okay. So what can we do to reduce the anxiety and the expectations that we put on ourselves? Because most of the time it's not others that are putting this pressure on us. It's all coming from internal. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing is post here in my office. I'm going to, on some sticky notes, I'm just going to write out some good mantras for myself, scriptures from the Bible that I feel really kind of depict where I am and kind of like what this journey is, things that I need to remind myself. And I'm going to post them up on my wall so that I'm forced to see them and remind myself, because sometimes, we get so trapped in our own head that we have a hard time reminding ourselves of what, is truth. And so I think having an external source of a reminder is a good thing. So if you're kind of, in the same boat as me, where you maybe feel a little bit of anxiety about stuff, maybe just, do the same thing. Come up with some statements that remind you of why you're doing this, and things that encourage you and lift you up and build you up and kind of keep yourself in check, and put it someplace where you'll see it regularly. Don't just write it in your phone, because then you got to bring it up in your phone. I would recommend just
something
putting
visual,
it out in the open, whether you put it on the refrigerator or if you because I work from home for the most of the time. So I'm in this room a lot. And so, I'm going to post it up on my wall, because this is where I spend a lot of my time.
Right.
Because I need that reminder.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the action point.
Great idea. That's action. I think, like, if I could think of one, I think it would be, like maybe having, like maybe even writing out, like when I sign up for a race, like maybe writing out the goal, like, I don't know, like maybe really having the 3 different goals. Like, this would be great if I achieve this, but I'd be really happy with this. And, and then I'm just kind of just happy to finish. And then really, like, almost like same thing, like kind of reminding myself of those, like and even thinking through, like, if I don't have a good race, like, how can I still be happy? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna like, how can I still be kind of happy with the outcome? Like, so I'm not putting so much pressure on myself. So whether that's like, yeah, I think maybe mantras are helpful too. And I like that idea of having things, that you can see visually. But I think I just need to spend more time, whether it's like journaling about it or kind of reflecting on it a little bit and just thinking, okay, what am I doing this for? And yes, I still want to train as though I'm going to get that PR because I still need to put the training in and I still would like to accomplish that, but maybe really focusing on what can I be still happy with. So it's like
Yeah.
kind of that ABC race goal thing, but really focusing on almost like working through a little bit more how can go into the race peacefully, just knowing I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And there's not really much I can do about the weather or any other factor. And I'm just going to go in and it's going to be what it's going to be and try not to like be thinking so much in my head about how I need to perform, but just let it be kind of letting like almost like you would be like, at this point, I put all the work in, or, when I get to the race, like it's going to be what it's going to be. And you kind of just have to let it go, right? And just do the race and
Yeah.
let it be. And so I think I need to do a better job at that. And if I figure out a really good way to kind of work through that, I will share it because I'm still trying to formulate exactly how I'm going to go about that, whether it's going to be some daily journaling or some sort of reflection of some sort. But that's kind of where I'm gonna be with it anyways. So if anyone has any great
Yeah.
ideas for how to kind of, I don't know, take the pressure off, work through some of the goals and be more at peace before, I'd be more than happy to hear. So if anyone does have any thoughts, please reach out.
Yeah, that's a
Maybe
great
maybe
lead
we need to have
into
like a psychologist come, a sports
yes. Yeah.
psychologist. I think we maybe like have at this point. I know we have talked
So
about guests.
join the private Facebook group for the Endurance Athlete Journey podcast group, and we should start a thread or
Yeah.
just go out there and just post there on some of the things that you do to kind of like remind yourself of why you do this and the things that kind of help get you out of your own head,
Hmm.
and share it with us and share it with people that are in the group. I know, because if it's something that you kind of struggle with, and so that this is something that you purposefully implement, I can guarantee that there's going to be somebody else out there that
Hmm.
deals with the same thing, and they may be benefited and helped by your suggestion. So go out there and join that group.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to hear what people have to say.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, on that note,
I think that does it.
I think
So
that does it. Yeah.
we did all the housekeeping in the front part of our thing. So I think we're good.
Yeah.
Next week, I can't remember what our topic is.
It's nutrition. So we've talked about
Yes, the periodized nutrition.
mhm.
All
So
right.
again, we
So
talked about the
yeah,
training, and now we're going to sort of talk a little bit about how you can periodize your nutrition around your training plan around the year to kind of accomplish your goals. So, and we'll kind of talk about what that could look like and how that might look. So, yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
So
I think
all
so.
right. Yeah. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Endurance Athlete Journey podcast. This is episode 18, where we talked about performance anxiety and just how crazy I am. So, but thank you so much for your time. We know that you have an abundance of podcasts that you can listen to. So you choosing us really means the world to both of us. So thank you so much for that. Until next time, from the Endurance Athlete Journey podcast, I'm your host, Coach Justin, along with Coach Katie. And thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Listening to the Endurance Athlete Journey podcast. Like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. Feel free to leave us up to a 5-star review on iTunes and Spotify, because leaving a review really helps others like you find us. Visit the podcast website for other episodes of the Endurance Athlete Journey podcast at enduranceathletejourney.buzzsprout.com. Have questions or comments about the podcast? Send Coach Justin and Kate an email at theenduranceathletejourney@gmail.com. For all things coaching, visit Coach Katie at fuel2run.com and Coach Justin at tabularasaracing.com. Again, thank you for listening to the Endurance Athlete Journey podcast, and remember to find joy in the journey.